.3D film technology existed at least as far back as 1922, with the release of the lost movie The Power of Love, but in those days, the gimmick never caught on, and by the early 1940s, none of the major studios showed any interest in making 3D movies. Then, in 1952, the independently produced Buona Devil, which was the first feature-length 3D film in color, exploded into theaters and proved to be an enormous box office success. Practically overnight, all of the major studios began rushing 3D films into production. Warner Brothers had House of Wax with Vincent Price, Columbia had Man in the Dark along with a few 3D westerns directed by William Castle, and Universal International had a little science fiction film written by Ray Bradbury.
In the night sky above rural Arizona, a fireball has come hurtling to the earth. John Putnam, an astronomer, and Ellen Fields, the elementary school teacher with which he is romantically entangled, hurry to the site to investigate. Putnam descends into the crater and discovers an alien craft with something stirring within, but when a rockslide buries all evidence of it, he has to convince everyone that he is not insane, that aliens have crash-landed in the desert. He is summarily dismissed, of course, but it isn't long before strange things begin happening on the outskirts of town.
Before we go any further, if you could please hit that like button, it will help me finish my plans before the bloodthirsty mob comes knocking at my door. If you really do like what I'm doing, don't forget to subscribe to get more content. Thank you in advance. With that out of the way, let's get back to the subject at hand. Producer William Allen, who started his career alongside Orson Welles at the Mercury Theatre, came up with the basic pitch for a movie about aliens that may or may not be hostile crash landing on the Earth. He took it to famed science fiction author Ray Bradbury and had him turn it into a treatment. Bradbury agreed to do it as long as he could write two versions, one that would follow a typical Hollywood formula with the aliens ultimately proving to be enemies, and one that he would write for himself, in which the aliens would prove to be more peaceful.
Don't be afraid.
Bradbury had yet to do any work for film, and as such, he wasn't entirely clear on what a treatment was supposed to be. His dueling treatments then were each long enough to be novellas. Universal decided to go with the second version, the one Bradbury had written for himself, which had a less bombastic final act and a more daring thematic thrust, and Harry Essex was subsequently hired to write the screenplay. Given the length of Bradbury's treatment, which was 111 pages total, Essex didn't have much work to do beyond reformatting the text. He did rewrite a lot of Bradbury's dialogue, but according to those who've read them, the script and the treatment are virtually identical in every other way. The project went through several titles, including From Out of This World, The Meteor, Atomic Monster, and Strangers from Outer Space, before settling on It Came from Outer Space. To direct the movie, Universal tapped Jack Arnold, a documentary filmmaker who was just starting the transition into narrative features. After It Came from Outer Space, Arnold's name would become synonymous with Golden Age sci-fi films like Creature from the Black Lagoon, Tarantula, and The Incredible Shrinking Man, many of which he made in collaboration with William Allen. The lead of the picture, amateur astronomer John Putnam, is played by Richard Carlson, a writer and actor who'd had a respectable career as a leading man before the war, but whose star was fading in the early 50s. It Came from Outer Space is one of 5 science fiction films he appeared in 1953, and together they would spark something of a renaissance for him, even giving him the chance to direct a few films of his own. The female lead, schoolteacher Ellen Fields, is played by Barbara Rush, a young actress who'd had supporting roles in When Worlds Collide and Flaming Feather. It Came from Outer Space would earn her a Golden Globe for Most Promising Female Newcomer, and she would go on to have a very successful career in film, stage, and television. The only other actor worth noting is this guy, Russell Johnson, who plays George. Johnson was an unknown at the time of It Came from Outer Space, but he would go on to appear in quite a few Golden Age sci-fi films like This Island Earth and The Space Children. He'd become most famous in the mid-60s, though, for his role as the professor in Gilligan's Island.
How was that?
That wouldn't even satisfy your mother.
Principal photography took place over 30 days in and around the Universal lot, with some location shooting done in the Mojave Desert and the towns of Victorville and Palmdale, California. There was one rather horrific accident in which one of the second unit crew members named Carl Lawrence walked into a spinning helicopter rotor. He survived, but his injuries, which included a lost eye, required extensive reconstructive surgery. Pro tip: don't walk into helicopter rotors. The spectacular shot of the alien ship crashing to the Earth, which is mirrored at the end of the film to show it leaving, was achieved by taking a hollow iron cage, 9 inches in diameter, adding a dorsal fin, filling it with magnesium powder, igniting it, and then filming it in slow motion. For the crash itself, in which it appears to hit the camera, it's actually hitting a mirror. One of the studio's big concerns about the film was the creature itself. Throughout production, Bradbury, Essex, Arnold, and Allen all agreed that aside from the POV shots that were done with, no joke, a big soap bubble attached to the camera lens, the aliens should never be seen on screen, that their appearance should remain a mystery, lest the film devolve into a schlocky creature feature. 18 days after principal photography was completed, however, Universal, specifically the head of production Bill Getz, got cold feet and instructed several art directors to draw up a few sketches for what the alien could look like. 2 of these sketches were chosen and manufactured into working models, the one seen in the final film, and another one that was later tweaked into the design of the mutant in This Island Earth. Universal then brought everybody back for reshoots to work the aliens into the film, much to the displeasure of Bradbury and Arnold. In hindsight, it's easy to think the studio made the wrong call, that the movie might be more interesting without being able to see the attackers, but then again, it's possible the movie would have bombed without the creatures, that audiences would have walked away angry, and few would remember the film today. Instead, when the film released in late May of 1953, it was a box office success, helped along by a robust local marketing campaign that set records for Universal International. On a budget of roughly $800,000, the film grossed $6.5 million in its initial release. Critics were lukewarm on it, though they certainly didn't hate it. In subsequent years, though, it has earned a reputation for being one of the highlights of the 1950s sci-fi craze, and it currently holds a respectable fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. What makes the movie stand out from similar pulp sci-fi of the era, at least for me, is Bradbury's earnest messaging. This is a movie about prejudice, about how we tend to react with fear and violence to anything different from ourselves. Though the film is hardly subtle about it, Bradbury's original outline elaborated even more on this theme. It included a rousing speech wherein the treatment of Native Americans and Africans is used as an example of how we tend to be barbaric even with our own kind. Even without this speech, though, the movie gets its point across in a surprising way for a 50s flick, even using the romantic relationship of the 2 leads as an example of people making undue judgment about others without any evidence. For a film in the middle of the most paranoid period of the Cold War, that's pretty daring. Beyond its immediate resonance with audiences, It Came from Outer Space also had an enormous influence on sci-fi cinema going forward. Not only did it inform other Golden Age films, but it inspired films well into the 70s and 80s, all the way to today. While not the first sci-fi movie to feature benevolent aliens, that was more of an exception than a rule in 1953, the same year in which War of the Worlds took theaters by storm. A few decades later, Steven Spielberg, who would later make his own version of War of the Worlds, personally thanked Ray Bradbury at a preview screening of his film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which he said wouldn't have been made had Spielberg not seen It Came from Outer Space as a child. A sequel/remake was made for television in the 90s, but the less I say about that, the better. And that's all for today, my fellow Earthlings. What do you think? Would It Came from Outer Space be better or worse without the aliens appearing on screen? Let me know in the comments, and while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you really do like these videos, consider joining my Patreon to get early access, vote on future topics, and more. You can also check out my website at emcgill.com, where you'll find written reviews of plenty more sci-fi classics in both film and literature. Until next time, when we'll collide with my favorite pal, this is the Unapologetic Geek, telling you to never be ashamed of what you love, as long as you're not hurting anybody.
This may be the biggest thing that's ever happened.